If you enjoyed last episode on human design, then you are going to love today's episode. In this episode, we're going to dive deep into human design and the shadow side of human design with Danna Yahav. Danna's insatiable curiosity has taken her down every spiritual healing and self-growth rabbit hole for the last 15 years. Her specialization is human design, shadow work, radical self-acceptance, and liberation from a highly syndicated world. The work she has done to marry human design and psychology has brought in thousands of people to download her human design shadow chart, her workbooks on Amazon that have been sold in 8 different countries. And Danna continues to shift others' perspectives, inspiring them to find meaning in their lives, safety in their choices, and the courage to be who they are through her programs. You can find her on Instagram and on her podcast, A Tonic for Lunacy. All the links will be in the show notes. Welcome to the Unweaving Chronic Pain podcast. I am your host, Dr. Andrea Moore, founder of the Whole Self Integration Method, and I am here to help you move from a life that is shrinking due to chronic physical pain, chronic emotional pain, a life that just feels like it's not what life was meant to be. If this is you, then let's take you from a life that is shrinking to one that is expanding and is full of opportunity that you have curated for yourself. And a life that, when things go awry, as they inevitably do, you know how to get yourself back up again. If you're ready to get started on that journey, a journey of integrating your whole self, moving through chronic pain and emotional pain so you can just get back to living your life, then DM me podcast, and I'm going to share with you a special opportunity that is only available to podcast listeners. So just DM me on Instagram at Dr. Andrea Moore podcast, and I will share the details. You are going to love this, and I'm so excited to be providing this special opportunity just for my listeners. Now, getting into today's episode. Welcome, Danna. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Why don't you start a little bit? I found you randomly on Instagram, as I find most people these days. And I was just so I love her work. I love the shadow aspect of things. I've downloaded your shadow chart, and I've, been doing some of this fun work, which now no one has any idea what I'm talking about. So let me have you introduce a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we can dive into things.
Okay, great. So my name is Danna, and what I do is human design shadow work. So for anyone who's never heard of human design, this is my bar speech, right? Like if I meet someone at the bar and they're like, what do you do? I say, well, it's kind of like astrology, but better. Like it's astrology on crack. Like it's just, I think it blows astrology out of the water. It just, essentially you put in your information, your birth time, your birthday, your birthplace, and it spits out this chart that is a wide spectrum of energy, all the way from your shadowy, darkest, not self energy, all the way to your greatest, brightest potential of who you can, you've dreamed of being. Or maybe you haven't even dreamed because you don't know you can dream that big. So it is a huge spectrum of energy that tells you a lot about who you are. So what I do specifically is work with people in terms of shadow. So I am fascinated by human behavior, by psychology, what makes people tick, what makes people do what they do, what is their trauma, and how does that affect who they are today. So I work with people on revealing their trauma, their shadow self, their trauma responses, healing all of that, working through the conditionings, who they have been conditioned to be in order to reveal that true self energy, who they really are.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. Are you like the type of person that when you go out and meet someone, you're instantly talking about their trauma because you seem like you?
Yeah. So this might come as a surprise, but people don't always want to talk about their trauma.
I know, right? It's why? Yeah, I don't want to talk about the abuse you sustained when you were a child. Is this not a fun conversation for you? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Right. But yes, I would love that. I have Like when I used to be like on Bumble and, talking to different guys, and sometimes I just be like, okay, like this is so fun, but like tell me your childhood trauma.
I'm right.
And they're like, okay, bye.
You're like, okay, well, I guess we won't work out, okay?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I like went to a class, like reunion with like my husband, like for my husband's like 20-year class reunion. These girls that were friends of his just came and sat down, and he was like just getting up to go like grab a beer or something, and he comes back and we are like, they were like diving into trauma, and they're like, he's like, seriously? Like, all right. I was like, sorry, he left. I was like, where else was I supposed to take this conversation?
Right. Yeah, like if you're gonna sit down and talk to me, that's where we're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, anyways, I love it. So, and I just want to say what I really love and what I really loved about the way you approach things, because I think we approach things in a very similar way, just from a different avenue, is you're about looking at your trauma so you can, like you said, reveal your true self. It's like so you can move forward, so you can go live a life you love.
Yeah.
Not to stay stuck in it. And
yes,
I feel like this just needs to be said, because I'm seeing more and more people, weirdly enough, talk about it from a place of like, let's stay stuck in it, or let's stay really attached to it. And it's really weird.
Totally. And like I feel like this really started coming right around COVID, when everybody was kind of stuck at home and they're stuck in their shit and they're recognizing all their behaviors and like, oh my God, this is not good. I can't believe I drank that much. Whatever it is. And they're starting to dive into their traumas, and, nervous system regulation started to be like the buzzword on Instagram. And that's great. But also what I'm finding is, and I think this is what you're saying, is that it's so comfortable to be in this victim mindset. Like it's so comfortable to see these posts on Instagram that are like, well, if you're a complex PTSD survivor, if you have this, that, and the other thing, it's like, yes, we're validated by it. And that's good. That's great. We want to be validated by it. But then we stay stuck in it because, well, this gives me an excuse to be how I am and who I am, and to be in a toxic relationship, and to do this and do that. And yes, this is just who I am. Just accept me as this is who I am. And my whole point is, this is not who we are. This is who we have had to be. Transcend past that.
Yeah.
Survival.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And I think there's areas where it's really obvious, right? Where it's like so obvious that it's like, okay, if you are identifying as, what is it, like the rejection sensitive dysphoric, or I can't even remember what the name is right now, but it's like, I literally saw someone post, like, I am looking for XYZ, but like I have rejection sensitivity, so I'm unable to go. And I was like, seriously? It's like, so I'm unable to have job interviews. So how can I get, it wasn't that, but it was something along our lines. And it's like, this is not how we're supposed to use these labels.
Correct.
Right. But so it's like, it gets fairly obvious when you take an open look of where it is. Okay, people are using a label to get in the way. But then I do think there's areas, I think where I've struggled of, wait, is this me or is this not me? Like, am I someone who, is meant to, like, let's talk about talking about trauma, right? There's probably areas where bringing it up is not appropriate. And there's areas where Judy Bean, it's kind of in our play of like, there's nuance to everything.
For sure.
And I don't know, I think that's where your work is really interesting, because I feel like you play in that area quite a bit.
I mean, we definitely play in the nuances. We play in the, it doesn't have to look this specific way. Also, like, the thing with trauma and with shadow work and our behaviors, and it's not a straight line. Like, it's not linear. I can't say that if you've had this trauma, this is how it's going to play out in your life. Like, it doesn't work that way. So we really do become kind of like detectives. I'm like sifting through the evidence and looking at behaviors and thoughts and beliefs and family members and all of these different things to see how this could be showing up in your life. So yeah, you're right. Like, it's hard to say, like, I am a rejection, whatever it was, and therefore I cannot do this. Like, no, I have to become aware that I am sensitive to rejection, but like, we all are. We all are. So who is not sensitive to rejection? Like, nobody likes rejection. It's just that some of us are able to move through it faster or in a different way. So I think it's more for us, for me, it's more about having the awareness of who I am and how I typically respond when I am in survival and how I typically respond when I am not in survival, and which one feels better. Like, who do I want to be? What do I want to create in my life? And how can I work through my survival tendencies to move into that direction? But yes, it's very nuanced, which is why I love the body graph, which is why I love human design, because I can see the nuances in the body graph. And for a lot of us who are traumatized, and I call it like my broken brain, you know, the complex PTSD that really does affect the brain, like, we're very logical and we love certainty, right? Like, that's that fear of the unknown, the fear of survival, of, you know, not surviving. And when we can see it in the body graph, when I can prove it to you in the body graph, you have this like sense of certainty and sense of awareness that feels so grounded. It's like, okay, yes, I can see how this behavior might be a not self. I can see how I do have this potential. It's just such a grounded feeling rather than like this airy, you know, Instagram posts that are like, oh, well, if, you know, your mom did this, then it's this. And if your dad did this, then you're like this. It's like, no, it's more nuanced than that.
Yes. I remember when I first came across human design, I feel like the astrologies, I love how you described it as like astrology and crack. That's great. I don't know, I feel like astrology I was always like kind of intrigued by it, but then I'm an Aquarius and I feel like I just never like really resonated with a lot of it. And then like I feel like now as I'm learning more about like Aquarius, it's because like we're all like fucking different anyways or whatever, or just all over the goddamn place. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's why that makes sense. But I felt like when I read my like initial reading, it was really validating, like that bringing the validation piece. Because for instance, I feel like the thing that popped out to me that's like, ooh, right, is like you like latch onto something. I'm like, oh, there's something here, right? Is that I'm in a completely open throat. And so I mean, you can probably speak to it now. I'm like, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was something like, I'm going to change my voice or how I'm speaking based on who I'm speaking to.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur with an online business who's constantly like, you got to craft your message and who are you speaking to? And I'm like, but I don't know who I'm speaking to. It's different. And then I used it for like, I mean, I was beating myself up for a year for like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm morphing into different people. What is wrong with me? I'm not being authentic to myself. I can't do. And then I'm like, oh, this is me because I do morph to different people. And like, that's okay. It's not some huge personal failing. And I also have to figure out how to craft a coherent message as an online entrepreneur, right? I mean, sort of. Like, I don't know, in some places. I don't know, maybe not. So maybe challenge that more because I'll take it.
Right. So like that's my whole thing is that like, you know, moving away now that you're recognizing who you are through the body graph, like, do I have to do it this way? Do I have to do what they tell me to do? Like, I don't know. If it's working for me, then do I really have to change again to be someone I'm not or something I'm not? Or at what point is it, you know, just like self-development? Like it's just growing and learning and that's fine too. But I think it's like that added pressure of like, I need to figure out my message and it needs to look like this. And like, I hate that shit. I don't resonate with that. I don't resonate with it at all. Like I've done so many of those programs of like, who's your target market? Like, who's your ideal customer? Like, oh my God. It just,
and I feel like your messaging is so clear though.
Because it's just me.
Yeah.
Because I'm just being myself and I'm not overcomplicating it with all of this other shit. Sorry, am I first on here?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what the body graph has helped me do, right? Like exactly like you said, it's so validating. It's like everything that I thought was wrong with me, everything that I thought I needed to change to belong, to be better, to make a lot of money, to find love, whatever. All of those things that I thought were wrong with me were actually my true essence. And like I allowed myself to just be myself. Everything just falls into place. I mean, my life's not perfect, right? Like, let's not pretend. But But
it's not about perfection here. So we're all about embracing the messiness because, like, of course it's not perfect because that's ridiculous.
Right, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's good for me.
Yes. Yeah. Nothing's going to feel great all the time. Like, it's life. It's going to be messy. Shit happens. Like,
yeah, totally.
We can, like, move, right? That's kind of a lot of what I speak on. It's just, like, and you can move through, like, the waves with some sense of ease while, it's also painful at the same time.
You know what? I like when you say, like, move through the waves, it's like, yeah, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. But the difference that what this work has given me is the confidence to know that no matter if the wave is up or down or turned around, I'm always going to be okay. And I, for the first time in my life, actually trust that. And I actually know it to be true because I like myself and I like who I am. And I feel like I have my own back, like I support myself. And that's what this work really gave me. Like yes, I'm authentically me when I can be, consciously. And even if I'm not, like, it's okay. Like, I'm okay. Everything's okay. Unless I'm not. Like, unless I'm dead. And then it's like, well, why does it matter anyway? Because I'm dead.
That's so I love that you said that because it's like, feeling worst case scenario, I die. I'm like, well, I'm dead. So it doesn't even feel that scary. I'm like, okay, boo-hoo. So then I say it out.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Then I don't need to worry about anything because I'm dead.
Exactly. Like, I get out and never let
everyone appreciate it. And I say that though. So I love that you said that.
Oh no, you're in good company. I mean, it makes sense.
Right? I mean, yeah. I'm like, okay. I mean, sometimes dying just feels almost a little bit better because then you're like, well, I wouldn't have to deal with all that shit. So okay.
I mean, my girlfriends kind of joke about that all the time.
Yeah. I love it. I'm so curious, what's the most interesting thing that you've learned about yourself in doing this work?
So in human design, there's profiles, and your profiles are kind of like your personality. And I'm a 1-3. So the 1 is the researcher. Like, I love researching. I love going deep into things. And then the 3 is the experimenter. The 3 tries all kinds of different things, basically bumps up against life over and over again and makes a ton of mistakes. And I used to be so hard on myself for not being able to stick to just one thing and fucking everything up. And why do I always mess everything up? And why do I suck at field hockey? And why am I not good at dance? And why are all these things that I'm trying and I'm not good at them and none of them make sense? And even in business, I've taken so many different courses. Why did this not work? Why did I not do that? Why? And what human design really allowed me to see is that I am here to bump up against life and to make these mistakes. And instead of making these mistakes about me and how I'm bad and wrong and fucked up, it's information. This works. This doesn't work. And now having that perspective when I try things or when I hire coaches or when I, sign up for the $1,000 masterclass, whatever it is that people are selling, I'm going in with the intention of let's play. Let's try this out. Let's see what happens. It's no longer about I fuck everything up. I'm researching, I'm gaining information, I'm experimenting. And then I'm going to take it back and I'm going to be like, this worked, this didn't work. I'm going to make a little Excel spreadsheet and it's not about me, right? It's about the information.
Yes.
But that was huge confidence boost.
Yes. I'm a 3-5.
Okay.
And so I also felt very validated by that because I also am I feel like that someone described it as you're a throw the spaghetti at the wall person. I'm like, yes. Although I'm very jealous of then the 1 in your profile because I'm but then I don't ever make an Excel spreadsheet about it. And I don't always learn from my mistakes. I forget that I made that mistake and then I just do it again.
Yep. And you know what? That's a 3 too. I make the same mistake over and over and over again. Especially with men. Sometimes you just keep going and keep going and keep going. And I thank God my girlfriends are it's fine. You can keep talking about this as much as you want. Because I'm I clearly have not learned. That's to learn here because I keep coming back for more. So it takes as long as it takes. And it is what it is. And the more you fight against it, the more that it just continues. So I try to just like witness it and just observe it. And where am I not willing to get uncomfortable? Like, I challenge myself, of course, but it also is the process.
Yeah. I love how you're talking about that, like the playfulness about it and like the witnessing of it. And then like there's just like so much gray and nuance here. And I love how you bring it in because it's like, yes, we need to challenge ourselves and look at like, where are we repeating the same mistakes? But also, I love how you're like, it's just a process. Sometimes we have to repeat it over and over.
Yeah.
Until we learn.
Right. And I have found that to be my process. That like, that's what I do. Like I can see it consistently that I just keep repeating certain things until I've learned it. And then I'm like, ow. But it's like there's something in there. And there is something in, human design. So we also have these 9 centers that are sort of like the chakra system, but a little bit different. And your centers could be defined, which means colored in, or undefined, which is white. And depending on which centers you have defined and how they're connected by channels will determine your definition. So there's single definition, which means that all of your defined centers are connected via channels. There's split definition, which means that you have 2 different islands of definition. There's triple split, which is 3 islands. There's quad split, which is 4 islands. And then there's note definition, which is a reflector. So based on your definition, it basically tells you how you process information. So I'm a split definition. So I process information slowly. Like it just, it is what it is. Like I take longer to move through programs and courses and to read books. And if I really want to embody it and integrate it, then it takes me extra long time. It just takes me longer to process information because the energy of those centers are not connected. So they're trying to find each other, but they don't connect. So it just takes longer. And I find that to be true with my experimentation too. Like I just have to be patient with myself. Some things will just take me longer to figure out.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And yeah, for anybody who is listening and has like no idea what's like the human design, like you can go to Danna's website and like download a free chart. And then it'll tell you which definition and all that you are. Yeah. Okay, so I have a question for you about this. What does it mean? I'll ask it like 2 different ways, but I think it's getting to the same thing. So we were talking about like the 3 and the messiness of it all and then the experimentation. So it's like if someone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds like me. And then they go look up and it turns out they're like a 2-4 and they're like not a 3. It's like, what does that mean? And then I'm going to ask it in relationship to myself here of you're describing kind of like, oh, there's certain things that I learn slower. It's my process. I'm pretty sure I know I'm a single definition, which means I'm pretty sure that according to like, I think what you wrote in my chart that I process things quickly. Yeah. So what does it mean if I am not learning? I'm not processing things quickly, or I do keep making the same mistakes. Do you know what I mean? If it feels like it is taking me a long time, right? So it's like, what does it mean when someone is like, oh, this doesn't sound like me, I guess.
Yeah. So I will say, I say this all the time, like I'm pulling out elements of the chart, right? Like I'm telling you your line 3 or your definition, but we don't live in a vacuum and we can't look at the chart in a vacuum either. So like while I can pull out specific elements and tell you how it might affect you, I really like to look at the chart holistically. So something that I teach my students is how to synthesize the chart, how to read the chart basically in like a paragraph, including almost everything in the chart, because it is all connected in different ways. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is everything is so nuanced. Like it's a frequency. Sometimes it's low and sometimes it's high, and there's in between too. So when you say that I feel like I don't process, I would ask you, process what? Is it information? Okay, well then is your ajna or crown defined or undefined? What are the gates that we have in there? What is the brain, the mind processing, right? Do we have format energy? Like there's so many different places that I can look to give you insights into why you are the way you are, or what the higher frequency is, or how it might just be a trauma response, a survival mechanism, right? Like a lot of us are trying to process information that we're not even meant to process, especially if you have that undefined ajna and crown, and you're constantly getting barraged with information overload. If your strategy and authority is saying, no, this isn't for me, but you're still trying to process it, that there's a big disconnect, right? Like the mind is doing one thing and the body's rejecting it. Body's like, no, I don't care about this shit. Like, this isn't about, right? This isn't, and then the mind is trying to be certain about it too, which is also not self, because the mind wants to prove. What am I proving to who? Like, there's so much trauma in there. There's so much of needing to belong, of wanting to prove your love, of wanting to prove that you're smart enough, like so many different elements that we can pull out from just that.
Oh, that's fascinating. Like, oh man, yeah, go like re-listen to this. Yeah, I'm totally open. My top 3 are open.
Okay.
The names. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So the crown, the ajna. So the crown and the ajna, I put them together, just call that the mind.
Okay.
But they are 2 different centers.
Okay. Yeah. No, I love that's really interesting about you talking about like the mind wanting one thing and then the body wanting another thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's like so what I speak about all the time. So it's really fascinating now. And I've like never thought about it in reference to my chart. I'm like, oh, no wonder I love talking about this.
Yeah. Because you experience it.
Literally my chart. Yeah. That everything else is defined.
Yeah. And if we think about it, 70% of people have an undefined crown. So that means 70% of people are thinking about things that don't matter. They're just taking in inspiration, taking in information, and they're making it their own. They're creating stories around it. They're getting hurt from it. They're making it a big deal when it doesn't need to be. Which, I mean, is social media.
Yeah, but it's so true about so many other things too, right? Like, I mean, that's a lot of the work around chronic pain that I do is that people are making stories about it or make it mean something that it just doesn't mean. And then they're spiraling in their heads about it all day long in the fear and the anxiety about it. And what's so fascinating is for a lot of my clients, when they don't have pain, like if they're having a good day, those are sometimes the worst days because then they're like, oh my God, how am I going to make it worse? Is the pain going to come back? What if I accidentally bring it on? And I'm like, oh, I've just never really thought about it. Like human design has been something I play with just like personally, but I'm like, I haven't really thought about it in reference to this work. And I was like, oh, this is so fascinating.
Yeah. So just to like piggyback on what you have to we do, like I teach nervous system regulation based on your body because it's different, right? So there's the solar plexus, and the solar plexus is responsible for feelings. I think you said everything is defined, so you have a defined solar plexus. I have an undefined solar plexus. For me to sit down every day and feel my feelings is going to really mess up my mind because I'm a screen, not a sponge. So I take on other people's emotions. I have the capacity to take on other people's emotions because my center is white, undefined. So if I sit down and feel my feelings, 90% of what I'm feeling is somebody else's feelings. But now I'm conceptualizing it. And now I'm creating stories around it. Well, why do I feel this way? Well, this is weird. Well, it must be because of this, that, and the other thing. When none of that is true, right? Like it could be, but it's usually not. We're usually just creating stories. But for somebody who has a defined solar plexus, your feelings are yours. So what you feel is consistent. It's consistent in a wave. So that wave moves sort of like your menstrual cycle, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, and sometimes whatever. But it's consistent for you. So for you to sit down with your feelings, how am I feeling? Naming those feelings is really important. It can really help you understand your waves and get a good feel for how to know when you're neutral in your wave to make your decision. If you have a defined soul plexus, that's your authority. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely different ways of feeling pain or thinking about pain or understanding even our feelings in terms of nervous system regulation based on the body graph.
Yeah, that's so good, because it's so interesting what you say about the feelings of like not being yours. I didn't know that about the undefined solar plexus. So I'm like, everyone go look theirs up, because that's so important. But in the way I have people work with their emotions, it's like one of the questions that I teach people to ask is this even mine? Because it's so crucial. And so that's so interesting. And then the other thing is that I do notice such a difference in people of, it's like, what works for you, right? Like I have a bias. I tell everyone, I'm like, I have a bias of what I teach, because it happens to be what works for me and the majority of my clients, who are very biased because they're coming to me because everything else didn't work, right? Like I tend to see people who the other stuff didn't work for, but it's like, you got to find your way. And so it sounds like there's just a lot of, if you don't want to, if you're an experiment, that there's going to be a lot of answers in your body graph around what nervous. And I remember now, remember you that in the shadow report, you have a whole thing about that of how to, I'm like, I haven't like even gotten down that far. I'm like slowly like working my way through things. But yeah, Donna has a whole thing about like different, you can speak to it. You know what I'm talking about. Heck out of this right now.
We talk about nervous system regulation because I think it's really important. So one of the things that human design teaches you is that anytime you make a decision in your mind, it's typically going to be incorrect, because our mind is completely conditioned. So human design wants to bring all of our decision making back into the body. So we have strategy and authority. And for a generator, manifesting generator, you're a generator, correct? So your strategy is going to be to respond. So you wait to respond, and then you respond with the sacral, or you take it into the wave, into the emotional wave. So where I found a huge disconnect is most of us don't know how to connect to our bodies. Most of us can't feel our bodies. I didn't feel my body for my first 30 years of life. Like, you just don't know how to feel your feelings. You don't know how to feel your sacral. You don't know how to feel that emotional wave, even like your spleen or, that instinctual yes. You don't know how to do it. So nervous system regulation and understanding the nervous system and understanding how to get back into the body, building that confidence and that trust in the body is crucial to come before strategy and authority. So a lot of people come to human design, they're like, I can't follow my strategy and authority. I don't know. It's too hard. I'm still making emotional decisions. I still use my mind. And it always comes back to, well, do you trust your body? If you're sick and you have chronic pain, then you probably don't trust your body. Your body has let you down. But in reality, you've also let your body down. So we rebuild that trust through nervous system regulation and through understanding how to release energy too. So I look at the root, which is the center all the way at the bottom, which is responsible for pressure and our adrenaline, and look at the connections that are going out from the root to see practically how to regulate your nervous system, how to get out all of that energy that's trying to.
Oh, it's so good. And I love how you're talking about that, like, trust in the body piece. Because, yeah, that's exactly what so many people with chronic pain lack. I mean, I lacked it too. It's like, how am I going to trust what this thing's telling me? Because so far, it's let me down a lot in many different ways. When really, I love the way you said it. It's like, actually, no, it has been telling me all along. I just haven't been listening. Or you start doubting it, or you're like, I think what so many people do is they actually do hear an answer. They just immediately shove it aside. Like, I have found 85% of the time, and this is with my bias, you know what I mean? Like, people I work with, people who are like, I have no idea what my body is telling me. It is fascinating how quickly they will be so freaking clear on exactly what their body is telling them, and then not even know. They will say it out loud and then shit all over it and be like, I can't, I'm like, you literally just, and they're like, no, I didn't. I'm like, this is why I record my sessions. Literally go back. Like, you literally just said your body needs more rest. And then you came up with every reason why it's not possible to rest. And you're like, what the hell is wrong with you, body? You have no idea what you're talking about. And then you're like, see, I can't. My body isn't talking to me.
Right.
And I say that with so much love because I do it too.
Sure. Of course. We all do. And it's natural because we have this thing up here that takes over. So for someone that has like sacral definition generator, you ask them yes or no questions. So I love to ask them yes or no question and just like watch their face, because as soon as their eyes go up, I know that they're using their mind instead of their body. And then when I bring it back into the body, all you have to do is say, or even now, like you're nodding, right? Like it's little tiny things, like your body is telling me. You see it. You just don't want to believe it, which is great, right? Like that's valid too. Let's go there. Let's play there, right? Because those are our shadows.
Yes. I love that. Like, it's like starting with, okay, cool. Now you've gotten this place of like, okay, my body, let's use the rest example. It's like, now let's investigate everything that's getting in the way of that.
Yes.
I feel like that's where a lot of the shadow stuff comes in.
Yeah. I mean, so the body graph, we have the defined centers, we have the undefined centers. The undefined centers is where we take on other people's energy. We take it on at 200%, so we amplify it. And as children, we don't know we're doing this. We take on somebody's energy and we make it our own. Must be who I am. So the work that we do is to decondition those undefined centers. And then the definition, which is what is defined, those channels, those gates, those centers, that is who we really are. But oftentimes we're operating in the shadow frequency of the definition because of the conditioning we have in our undefined center. So everything it affects each other, right? So the shadow work that we do is on the definition, because this is who you are. But for some reason, you were taught that it's wrong or bad, or that you should suppress it, or don't do this. And instead of living in your definition, you're living in your openness, which is your complete not self. So we try to tip the scales in the other direction to live in the definition, but in the higher frequency of that definition. But I don't want to get that confused with like love and light and high frequency shit, because I'm not about that. I mean, I love it, but I am all for going down into the depths first, into the darkness, and like what's there, because it's there whether you want to look at it or not. It's just that it's running your life unconsciously if you're not looking.
Yes. I think this is so huge. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna like repeat exactly what you said. It's like, if you don't look at it, it is still there. And not only is it still there, it often keeps growing or expanding out because there's like no checks on it at all.
Right. Yeah. It's like Carl Jung said, if until you make the unconscious conscious, it will continue running your life and you'll call it fate. And that's exactly what it is. Like, I've heard people say, people with large splits where they need more than one channel to connect their centers. I hear them saying all the time, God hates me. Like, this is just, the universe hates me. God hates me. I just have bad luck. No, there's tension in that openness between your definition that we need to work through. That doesn't hate you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And I think looking at this, like the dark side and the shadow side of things, it brings up so much discomfort for people. Like, it brings up so much shame and guilt, and like as if it's something you've done wrong, or it's like somehow a personal failing. At least I know that's like what I experienced, is like, oh, well, I, can't admit to the fact that here's this, behavior that I'm doing. Like, let's just, with my husband, I remember it took me a long time to be like, yeah, I totally pick stupid fights. Lately, like, being like really fucking manipulative, right? And it's like there was a part of me that was like very conscious I was doing it, but like, oh my gosh, was I getting something out of it, right? And it was like never great, but it was like, it took me so long to like fully admit it to myself and to shift it, because it's like, damn, I have to own up to the fact that I'm kind of being the dick here. Right? Like, it takes a lot to do it. And guess what? Our relationship is so much better since I've owned up to it.
Yeah. So like my classic defined solar plexus. What gates and channels do you have coming out of your solar plexus?
Oh gosh, I'd have to look it up. I could like bring it up. Ooh, can I bring it up real quick?
So like a lot of the work is like, oh, well, I do this thing and I have so much shame and I have so much guilt around it. And I'm like, okay, well, I can probably show you in your body graph why this is actually a positive. And it's just your perspective around it that needs to be shifted. But also, I'm a true believer that everything can be fixed with honest communication. Like, I don't care what your type is, but if you can talk to someone honestly and clearly and without being defensive, you will heal everything.
Oh my gosh. Like saying that again. I hear that so often from people. Like, it's so funny when I have a lot of, people who are in a relationship or married, and they're like, well, here's this thing. I'm like, have you talked to your partner about this? And they're like, no, I don't know how to talk to. And I'm like, it doesn't have to. This is the person that you've committed to spend your life with. Like, they love you. Like, it gets to be met. Like, when I talk to my husband about stuff, it is not usually pretty or clean or right. It's like, let me word vomit crap at you. And I usually give him a little bit of a pre-warning of like, I'm about to spew some shit on you. And I get that I'm being super emotional right now. Like, you ready? Cool. Like, let me be, are you ready to take on my like word vomit that's about to happen? Yeah. Yeah. And like, let it be really freaking messy, because that's how you clean things up.
Exactly. And I think that there's there's a lot of fear around that. So the question I always ask is, what's the worst thing that could happen? Play it out, do the tape.
Yeah.
Because typically the worst thing that could happen is that everything stays the same.
Yeah. Seriously. Yes. Okay. I have my solar plexus. I have I'm like, this is me not knowing a ton about human design. So the channel is what it's connected, right? Or is they at the gate?
Yes.
Okay.
So when two centers are connected by a channel, which is two gates, turns into a channel.
Okay. Yeah. So I have was it 40? It's kind of blurry. Is that 4919?
Okay.
And then I have the gate 30.
Okay.
Off my solar plexus. That's it.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, that 1949 is sensitive. The 1949 feels other people's feelings. And I'm sorry, other people's needs. Like, it has it knows what other people need. And it can put other people before themselves, right? Like, I sense that you need this, so let me give it to you, and I won't get what I need, but it's okay. Like, I'll figure it out later. So a lot of the picking fights can be like a resentment of, I'm not getting my needs met, or my needs are not as important. I mean, obviously, I like to look at the entire chart, but
no, that's like 100% what it is. Like,
we're done here.
What does that mean? And it is. Oh, that's so funny. The needs. Yeah, he'll like just be sitting there, and I'm like, why aren't you telling me that you need this thing? And he's like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, totally tell him what he needs that he's not. And then I get mad at him for not speaking up for his needs that he has not told me he needs. But I'm like, I know you need this. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's strength in there, though, too, because I do, like, I've learned to say it in a far more helpful ways.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like, it's survival. Like, the 1949 is a lot about, it's like the hunter-gatherer. Like, it's what do we need? What do we need to survive? What do we need here? But the solar plexus is very emotional. It's very sexual. It's relationships. It's intimacy. It's all of those things.
Fascinating. Yeah, I feel like I bring out the emotional side of it real well. No.
Yeah, and that's what you're here to do.
It is. I feel like talking about emotion. Oh, no, that's so interesting. Yeah, I feel like it's really fun to look up the different gates. And there's one, so it's like I have one of my processes called like the whole self integration method. And like I have my doctorate in physical therapy. And it's like I can't remember which gate it is now, because I don't remember any of these things. But it's literally, I mean, as you know, everyone has their like different names for it, because I just dabble it. And like one of them is like, you're the wholeness doctor. And I was like, well, fuck you. I was like, excuse me. That feels very violating that you literally just said what I do as a living off of a gate I typed into Google.
You don't remember which one that was?
No.
Okay. That's interesting.
I can send it to you later.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's like one of the people who, I mean, I'm sure like, right, you can Google a lot of the things and it's like one of the people who always comes up. I like her stuff. This is before I find your stuff.
I mean, I still Google gates.
Okay. It's so great. Yeah.
Like it's easy. For sure.
It really is. Yeah. So if anyone is wanting to explore, like, I feel like the one downside of human design is when you first look at your chart, it's like, what the hell is this? And I don't know what any of this means. At least that's what it was. So,
overwhelming. I do have, my assistant and support coach, Whitney, does a lot of foundational basic stuff. So she is working on an ebook that's going to be ready soon at just like foundational stuff.
Nice.
Like, here's just like everything you need to know in like real human words. So hopefully we'll have that available soon. But you can also just Google.
Yes. It's amazing. And yeah, I do want to be respectful of your time. So tell people a little bit more about what like so I downloaded and like purchased the like actual like the full shadow report. And so like as someone who has purchased it and can vouch for it, like I do think it would be helpful if you have a little bit of human design knowledge. You explain a lot in there, and there's still some things that I definitely had to like Google because I've gotten some reading, like I've had some experience with it.
Yeah.
I think it would be, and you can speak to that, I guess, if that's right for it.
It's definitely not a basic report. It's not, I don't explain, what the centers are. This is a gate. This is a center. It's kind of implied, but it's more based for people that want to go really deep. They want to do the shadow work. They want to do the trauma work. They don't want to play on the surface, but also people that are familiar with human design and are sick of the basic bitch human design information that's regurgitated everywhere on Instagram. Like I just got so sick of it. So the shadow report is going to give you more depth. It's going to give you psychology, behavior, trauma. It's going to give you all of that stuff that I haven't seen anyone else do it. I'm sure someone else is doing it, but other than my students, I haven't seen it. So it's going to give you all of that based on your body graph so that you can actually validate it with your body graph, with who we know you to be based on human design, which is what I wanted to be able to do. Like I have these feelings and I need to be able to validate them. So just really quickly, the reason why I even did this was I have no memory of my childhood. So I was born in Israel and I moved here when I was 8, lots of things. And I have no memory. So when I first went into therapy, I was like, I don't know what I'm working on. Like, I don't know how to heal anything because I literally cannot remember a thing, which is very frustrating. So I went to the body graph and I'm like, this is what I have. This is my map of me. And I have everything that I have access to is here. So how can I weave these patterns and look at my behaviors, what I know to be true right now, and kind of work backwards to try to heal my trauma? And that's how I started doing this. Like, it was just for me to figure out my life, to figure my shit out. And then I started doing it for other people. And I'm like, oh my God, this works for others, not just me. So that's what this gives you. So it is a little bit deeper in human design. If you are brand new to human design, I would say, start with a foundational reading or start with, just Googling, downloading your chart, Googling it, and then come to us for the shadow.
Yeah, it's been really, really helpful because I also was very sick of reading the same regurgitated information. And I needed, as somebody who also likes to go into the shadow stuff, I was like, I need the dark side of this.
Yeah.
So I've been slow, and I'm going to encourage people, at least this is how I'm doing it, of just like slowly doing little pieces by little pieces. It's like you have so much time to discover all of this.
Yes, nothing but time. Don't try to rush through it. I find when you rush through it, even as a single definition, you miss pieces and you miss the integration part. It's like, oh, I just want to know all the things. Okay, but if we're not integrating and we're not embodying, then what's the point? It's just information.
Oh, totally. I've gone back. I think I got my original chart reading done 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I'll go back to it and I'll read something And I'm like, I swear it did not say this before. Like, if it was not a PDF that I have downloaded, you know what I mean? Like, I would not believe. I was like, I don't remember reading this. Like, yeah, it's so fascinating. It's like, oh, you're just like able to like embody like this next level, like, piece. And it's like, I can literally go and take like one sentence. It's like, no, I'm just going to sit with this for the next 6 months because that's enough.
Exactly. Like, I compare it to, Sex and the City is now on Netflix. So I started like rewatching it, like in the background. I watched it like 20 years ago, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember this happening. Wow.
Right.
It's the same thing. Like, you're in a different place in your life. You forget, you move on, you have different experiences, and then things resonate and make more sense.
Oh my God, totally. Yes. I love that you watch Sex and the City. That's like one of my favorite shows. I have probably watched that entire series, I mean, at least 10 times. And what's really funny is like I literally just probably rewatched it on HBO like last year, and you said it's on Netflix. I'm like, well, now I need to watch it again, clearly, because somehow it moving from HBO to Netflix means I need to rewatch it. I'm like, it's been a year. I should probably rewatch it all again.
100%.
It is very interesting watching it now as opposed to 20 years ago.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Anyways, I love it. Yes, no, I highly recommend checking this out if you have never delved into human design. Like, play with it. It really is validating. It's really fascinating. And yeah, I think especially I do want to just like make that extra plug for your part in that shadow report about the nervous system regulation piece, because if you are someone who's been, maybe you've learned one system of human or nervous system regulation and it's like feels like it's not working for you, you really break it down into the styles, like the different styles of nervous system regulation and what works for your specific body graph. And I found that to be really helpful. That was very validating, and I see like very permission giving, because a lot of mine is through like movement, and sometimes I just like need to be like, yeah, I don't need to sit here and do a whole process. I need to like just get up and dance to a good song.
Yeah.
And I like forget that it can be that simple, because that's like, it's so much more simple sometimes.
It's usually more simple than we allow it to be.
I love making my life. That's like me and my sister and my brother's thing about like our parents. They're like, how can they make things as complicated as possible? And that's how we do things in our family.
So who has the channel of struggle? The 2838.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to look it up. I've already brought up like my parents' human design and stuff like that. Okay, 2838. I'm writing that down and looking it up.
From the root to the spleen.
My gosh, probably everyone in my family.
Yeah, I have it. And I for sure make things more complicated than they need to be. So my way around it is nervous system regulation through working out. So every morning I'll go to the gym and I lift heavy, because that gives my body something to struggle with, so that my mind doesn't need to struggle later. And it is therapy.
I love it.
It is the only therapy. No. I love actual therapy as well. But it's really good for my energy, because otherwise my mind will find anything to struggle with.
That's awesome. I have 28, not 38 though.
Okay.
I'm going to have to go look at.
Yeah, I wonder if somebody completes that for you.
Oh. What happens if someone else completes it? What does that mean if someone's completes it?
Oh, that is also a whole other...
Okay.
No, I mean, we do. That's the point, right? Like, we are meant to connect with each other and to connect our bridges and our splits and our centers. And, your defined solar plexus, I amplify it because I'm undefined. And like, this is how when I connect, I have the 38. So I define your 2838. But I have the entire channel, which means that I compromise you because you only have the gate. So my channel of struggle can feel overbearing, right? Like, it can feel like too much for you. If I was in the not self of my channel of struggle and I was like, Andrea, everything is a struggle. Everything is hard. Everything is difficult. Like, you're going to be affected by that. Because my definition overpowers yours in terms of that channel.
Fascinating. Okay, so that's like, because I feel like I'm very good at holding space for people's like struggles, but there are some people where you're so right. Like, it's like, it makes me wonder if, that's so interesting. I love this.
Yeah. So then, like, that's great. Like, in that moment, that's fine. It feels heavy. But, like, when you leave that session, let it go because that's not yours. But what happens is we take it with us.
Well, like, oh, what's wrong with me? I couldn't hold space well. And so it's like, I just don't need to worry about any of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So cool. I love it. Okay. I will. Like, I could keep asking you so many questions, but
happy to do this again.
I know. Seriously. I was like, we could totally chat more. Absolutely. Where can people find you? I will put it all in the show notes as well.
Okay. I am on Instagram at this.is.danna, Danna, and humandesignshadow.com.
Awesome. I think everyone should go check Danna's stuff out. It's really, really cool.
Come hang out with us. I try to do a lot of educational things on Instagram, teach different aspects that people aren't talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, people, it's a good time.
It is. I love your stuff. I think it's
thank you.
So yes, thank you so much for being here and spreading all this amazing knowledge. I so appreciate it.
This was awesome. Thank you so much.